Good afternoon. I'm Keith Sutton, Chair of the Wake County Board of Education. Thank you for joining us for our weekly update. The vast majority of our schools will begin the formal phase of continuous remote learning starting on Monday. So most of our address today will focus on what parents, students, and staff members need to do to make that a success, as well as the challenges that come with this effort. With that, I'll turn it over to Superintendent Kathy Moore.
Thank you, Chair Sutton. As mentioned, the vast majority of schools will begin the formal phase of our continuous remote learning next week. Our teachers have laid the groundwork for this by connecting with their students over the past few weeks and engaging them both personally and academically. Your school has developed learning schedules that offer a great deal of flexibility for you and your family. Most, if not all, our families have received information on scheduling and expectations for your child's learning time and activities. If no one from your school has contacted you, we encourage you to please contact your child's teacher or teachers now to see what you should do. Chair Sutton will address some practical ways that parents can support students and make the most of continuous remote learning. But first, I would like to address two important factors: grading and technology access. Some questions still remain regarding grading practices for the rest of the year. Part of working through these questions includes waiting for additional guidance from the State Department of Public Instruction. But this is what we know. As of today, all high school seniors are operating on a pass-incomplete system, receiving either a P or an I. Seniors who were passing on March 13th will receive a P for the semester. This will stand for the rest of the current school year. Students who are not passing on March 13th will have the opportunity to improve to a passing grade. They should ask their teacher or teachers about their options. We still strongly encourage seniors to engage in remote learning, as we do not know whether schools will reopen on May 18th. What has yet to be determined is exactly what will happen for all other students. It is still possible, based on state guidance, that traditional grading could resume should we return to school after May 15th. That makes it imperative that students keep up with their coursework. We appreciate that many students are indeed working diligently and remain engaged in their studies. That is why you are likely to notice your child's teacher recognizing efforts and accomplishments in a variety of ways that, while the final details actually surrounding the traditional grades are decided. Of course, we will share any updates regarding grading policy once we get more guidance from the state. In the meantime, state education officials have made it clear that districts should ask students, parents, and teachers to focus on learning, engagement, and feedback versus formal assessments. The Department of Public Instruction has also advised districts they should not resume traditional grading practices until they can ensure that all students have access to the same materials. Simply put, it would not be fair to issue grades only to students who could access remote learning online. Which leads to the topic of device access. More than 28,000 students have told us that they do not have an appropriate computer device at home, and more than 10,000 don't have home internet access. To address those needs, we are in the process of distributing Chromebooks from schools. As of yesterday, 115 schools had loaned out over 12,000 Chromebooks. I think as of today, that number is now over 13,000. We know that principals are eager to distribute Chromebooks to all students who need them, and those who have yet to do so will notify parents as soon as they are able to hand them out. But before they can start the distribution, schools must have the Chromebooks for every student who requests one, and enough personnel to safely manage the distribution process. We also want to make sure that parents are aware that currently, Chromebooks are only being sent home to students who have internet access. For students without internet access, we expect to receive 10,500 Wi-Fi hotspots starting next week. As soon as they arrive, we will start preparing them for distribution. Once schools have the hotspots, parents will be contacted about a time to come to the school to collect both their Chromebook and hotspot. We had plans to provide take-home devices for our students within the next 2 years. But after the pandemic forced us to close the classrooms, We had to set out to execute a 2-year distribution plan within a matter of weeks. We appreciate everyone's patience as we work through inevitable hurdles that this has caused. With that, I will turn it over to Chair Sutton to discuss other options being provided to students so they can remain engaged in learning and practical tips for helping your child learn at home, regardless of how the information is delivered. Mr. Sutton.
Thank you, Superintendent Moore. To meet the needs of students who do not have access to technology, one option we encourage parents to take advantage of is educational programming on UNC TV. This programming was specifically designed to help schools keep students engaged during the pandemic. Later today, we will send all parents information on programming, including viewing guides to help students get the most out of the content that is being offered. There may be cases where students are not able to have access to digital resources or the UNC TV initiative. We will work with schools to distribute printed instructional materials to those students. As we have said before, remote learning cannot replace the classroom. We are, however, committed to providing equitable learning opportunities to every extent possible. To help your child in that effort, all parents can take some basic steps to get the most out of learning at home. For example, create a space for learning with the least amount of distractions possible. Familiarize yourself with your child's learning schedule provided by your school. We have emphasized with our schools that schedules should have maximum flexibility. If you have challenges at home, share those with your child's teacher. If you have access to the internet and a computer, make sure you know the virtual platform your child's teacher will use. Most will either use Canvas, Google Classroom, or Seesaw. Look for communication from your child's teacher about when you can meet with them for a phone call or video conference. Students in grades 6 through 12 may also use their WCPSS email account to send an email to your teacher if you have a question. Finally, review the student expectations and guidelines document you received last Friday via email. It contains a great deal of practical ways you can support your child's learning. We hope all of this will help you and your child enjoy remote learning as much as possible and will help you support their academic and emotional growth. Before I close, I also would like to once again acknowledge our dedicated child nutrition staff who continue to operate 34 food distribution sites throughout the county, providing free hot meals to children and families. This week alone, we have served more than 23,000 meals every day. In the 4 weeks since school has been closed, we've served more than 300,000 meals. This is also our second week of delivering food to several communities using our big bus food trucks. We're using activity buses to create pop-up food distribution sites in 12 neighborhoods. This week, our bus drivers and child nutrition staff on our big bus food trucks have delivered more than 2,500 meals a day. That brings our 2-week total for the big bus food trucks to more than 13,000 meals. We want to make sure everyone knows that our food distribution sites will be serving food tomorrow on Good Friday. You can find all of our food distribution locations, dates, and times on our website. Just go to wcpss.net/food. Our child nutrition staff and bus drivers are some of our hardest working heroes right now. I want to personally thank each and every one of them for serving our children when they need it most. To all of our parents, students, teachers, administrators, and staff, I wish you a peaceful and restful holiday weekend. We look forward to taking another important step in this unprecedented journey together as we begin the formal phase of continuous remote learning. Thank you. We will now take questions from the media. Please introduce yourself and the media outlet you represent.
This is Adam Owens with WRAL News. We've seen a petition that's gaining a lot of traction online where students would like the option to be able to decide whether they go pass fail or whether or not they can get a grade. Students who feel like they've worked very hard toward their GPA, perhaps have AP courses. Could you talk about how many contacts you got with people with those concerns and what, if anything, can be done about that? I know DPI guidance is important there.
I'm happy to take that, Mr. Sutton. We've had a number of contacts from students and families and actually even grandparents, I believe. And I think the advocacy that's happening from the parents or the students in particular is incredibly important. We know that our students have worked very hard. We know that if there is a path that we can carve out moving forward that leads to being able to assess students with a final grade, that would be a great scenario. But we do also want to make sure that as we get the guidance from DPI and as they push forward different options, that we are listening to that guidance and that we are in line with what the State Department is asking us to do. But the advocacy piece is important, and I think that student voice in this moving forward is an important part of what our state leaders and we are considering as we look at what our options are with regards to final grades for this year, as well as third quarter or fourth quarter.
Correll Sampson with Spectrum News. How are you doing? First of all, do you have a list of where the schools where the Chromebooks were distributed, and also the schools that are lacking Chromebooks?
I'll go ahead and take this, Mr. Sutton. We know that 115, maybe a little bit more, have distributed, and we do have communication is going back and forth about who has not yet and when they will be ready to. Part of the issue is that not all school books have the number of Chromebooks needed, so we're having to move them from one school to another school so that families can go to their base school to get their Chromebook. But I'm sure there's a list somewhere, and we can look for it and see. Anything else, Mr. Sutton?
I would just add that we would ask parents to be patient, reach out to the school, either, again, as I stated in my remarks, send an email to the teacher, reach out to school principal, and if they don't have Chromebooks just yet, wait patiently, and we will make sure that they have the necessary devices to distribute to every child that needs one.
Karen Hughes from the News and Observer. How would you encourage a student to continue to do schoolwork if they're not going to necessarily get a formal grade that they would, normally get from their assignments?
I can start that, Mr. Sutton. I think that it's because we don't yet know whether or not there is a final grade that's going to be assigned. And so we've asked teachers to keep the numerical grades that were already achieved by students by March 13th, to continue to assess and monitor and provide feedback on work moving forward, because we don't really have a final determination yet about whether or not, about the disposition of final grades. And so we do need our students to continue to work. And in particular, our students who are underclassmen will have to attend school next fall and continue in some way whatever the next level of the course is. And that's important too, to maintain that continuity and preparation for next year. Mr. Sutton, do you have anything else?
No, I would just add that, we want students to know that the semester and the year is not over. And as Superintendent Moore said, we are continuing to wait for guidance from DPI, and she and the staff and the board will weigh in and make a final determination when there's a clear path to grading.
Do we have any last questions?
Yeah, Correll Sampson with Spectrum News again. This is obviously unprecedented situation. What has been the last 3 weeks for you guys and your staff? What has that been like, trying to make this happen?
So we have, this is Kathy, we have a staff member who refers to this as BC and AC, before coronavirus and after coronavirus. It's not even a new normal because we don't know what normal is anymore. I think that we are all working hard to listen, to respond, and to try to build a platform and a path forward that values our students, our communities, acknowledges the importance of education and what we mean, not just to our students and families, but to the community. And it's been, nonstop. I mean, folks are working really hard. Folks are changing the landscape of everything that they're doing to try to figure out ways to continue to meet the needs of our kids. And at the same time, we're trying to send a message that we understand that this is turning everybody's life upside down in many ways. And we know that our schools, our students, our teachers are glue to a lot of what normal looks like for families. And so we're working really hard to make sure that we can continue to do that and be that glue. Mr. Sutton.
And I'll just add that we know that, families and students are both fearful of COVID-19, and at the same time, there's anxiety around not knowing, and there's anxiety on staff and board members. Oftentimes when we're asked questions and we don't know the clear answer, as again, information is changing daily. But we look at this as also an opportunity to make sure that we are attending to the needs of our students, families. One of the interesting things about this is that it is creating an awareness around the many gaps and disparities that are prevalent both in our community, in the district, and as a nation. And so it is giving us an opportunity to focus on those, while at the same time we respond to the needs of our students and families. And so we're looking at this as an opportunity to create a new path forward and think about ways that we can improve education, improve online learning, and that sort of thing. So we're all working hard, working diligently to make sure that we are moving forward.